Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today is day 2 of the Ocean Conference, and the conference activities, as you can probably see if you walk around the building, are in full swing. Plenty of events, also side events, alongside with plenary and the partnership dialogues. Leaders speaking in the plenary this morning included those from Monaco, Seychelles, Samoa, Sweden, and Belgium. The partnerships dialogues started yesterday, and the first one was focusing on marine pollution. Marine pollution, such as marine litter, nutrients, plastics, and microplastic, are causing a huge problem for the marine environment and biodiversity. We are very honored to have with us today, and we will be hearing from him in a few minutes, from His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, the Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs of Indonesia. As you probably know, Indonesia co-chaired yesterday dialogue with Norway. There will be 7 partnership dialogues, each focusing on a specific target in Sustainable Development Goal number 14. Yesterday, we had one, the one I just mentioned. Today, we have 2. This morning dialogue focused on managing, protecting, conserving, and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems. And this afternoon, we will focus on minimizing and addressing ocean acidification. The second dialogue that I just mentioned this morning was co-chaired by Italy and Palau. The third, due to start today at 3 p.m. on acidification, will be co-chaired by Monaco and Mozambique. Tomorrow, the one on fisheries will be Canada and Senegal. This diversity of the co-chairing, countries from the north and south, developing or developed countries, show how global the ocean's issues are and that only common solutions can target common problems. Yesterday, we were asked about numbers of participants, and I gave some provisional figures, but now I have a little bit more to update you all with. We have, however, many NGOs, for example, that are already accredited to the ECOSOC, and they have already free access, so they are not accredited for the conference in particular. So, as I said, that's why I say that the figures are not always as accurate as we would like them to be. In terms of participants in the plenary, we had 8 heads of state: Bolivia, Gabon, Ghana, Micronesia, Monaco, Nauru, Palau, and Zimbabwe. 1 vice president from the Seychelles, 7 prime ministers from the Cook Islands, Fiji, Grenada, St. Lucia, Samoa, Sri Lanka, and Tuvalu, the Crown Princess of Sweden, 2 deputy prime ministers, and 85 ministers, including 15 foreign ministers. The rest are mainly ministers of environment or of fishery, like His Excellency on my right, that is representing Indonesia. We have to finish 16 vice ministers, and the total number of delegates registered up to now is 1,739. Let's now go to the voluntary commitments, because as you know, it's a bulk and very important part of the objectives of the conference. We have up to now 835, 45 of which come from governments. The North Atlantic is the target of the most commitments, with 2001 followed by the South Pacific, 183, and the North Pacific with 152. You have very good infographics on the commitments in the conference website that I invite you to visit, so you can have them also classified in different categories. In terms of specific and some of the voluntary commitments that I would like to highlight, Iceland announced that it will map its ocean areas establish harvest control rules for important fish stocks, and reduce marine litter and ocean acidification through its climate change mitigation plan. Costa Rica underlined its intention to protect 100% of marine and coastal areas, implement integrated marine and coastal management, regulate fisheries, and protect turtles. Indonesia has called for the creation of a UN office for coordination and coherence of the marine environment. Prince Albert II of Monaco outlined his country measures, including a ban on single-use plastics. The Vice President of the Seychelles committed to developing marine spatial planning for and protection of 30% of his country's economic zone, and also to joining the Fisheries Transparency Initiative. On the private sector, for example, and as I said, this is not a complete, I'm just highlighting some of them. Metro Cash and Carry made a voluntary commitment yesterday that 80% of its 12 major fish and seafood species will be sourced from certified providers by 2020, according to one of the following certifications, according to one of the certification standards. Just to remind you that the SDG Media Zone continues today in the UN correspondence room. And I think it's a very interesting way to follow most of the main subjects of the conference in a much more relaxed and informal atmosphere. So that's all for now. I can take some questions on the overall elements of the conference, and then I will give the floor to His Excellency the Minister. Please.
I definitely have a question for the Minister. I just wanted to ask again because
we are going to have the questions to the Minister.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, Matthew Lee, Intercity Press. I just wanted, and I appreciate the numbers that you've provided for these various commitments. I understand that it's not the UN's place to vet commitments made by governments, that no matter how substantial or unsubstantial, you're going to list them. But the private sector commitments, is there any provision to looking at them and saying, is this a meaningful commitment, or is this essentially a corporation having little to do with oceans, just putting its foot in to say, we're with the UN? Because I've seen a few that are like that. And so I'm asking you again what the process is, rather than naming and shaming some commitments.
Sure. Thank you very much. I believe you actually posed this question yesterday. And I consulted with the Secretariat, as I mentioned yesterday. Those are voluntary commitments. So, I mean, if they were commitments that are engaging on somehow those that are doing it, of course, the fact of being done in a public and an important conference like this one, it has a relevance, but they are not, as I said, more than voluntary commitments, and that is why there will not be a vetting system. However, as it was mentioned yesterday by the President of the General Assembly and by the Secretary General of the conference, in December, there will be a ministerial conference in Buenos Aires in which most of those commitments might become binding. And of course, those will be coming from governments and not from the private sector. So if we don't have any other generic questions, and as I said, I am always available on the 10th floor to ask for some questions. Just one very short thing I would like to share with you. I think this is the best week to start in the UN what we call the Cool UN summer program. As of today, all the buildings, the thermostat at the UN headquarters will be set 77 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 25 degrees Celsius. And for the conference room, it will be a little bit lower because there's a lot of people. So this is part, of course, after the capital master plan of the UN, we are able to use this building in a much more conscious and environmentally way. So thank you very much. And with this, I am very honored to give the floor. I'm very, very grateful because he was yesterday co-chairing that important first partnership dialogue. His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, the Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs of Indonesia. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for very nice introduction. And yesterday, I think we discussed about how do we tackle this issue. I think there are two major issues. Number one, how do we deal with the breeze on land? And we'll try to minimize entering at sea. So number two, how do we deal with the breeze at sea? Issue number, this is I think number one. Number two, how do we deal with the IU fishing, illegal fishing? Illegal fishing is one issue that we have to handle this carefully. Otherwise, like Indonesia, we experience years overfishing. Also, we destroy a lot of reef. Number three, how do we implement this one? So we are not only talking about the plan or identified problem and then have a plan, but how do we execute this one? Those three, I think, that's the agenda that we discussed yesterday. Regarding government Indonesia, I think Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country. I mentioned already that one. And Indonesia right now, as I mentioned, is a huge country. 8 hours flying time from east to the west. Direct flight by jet. While from Jakarta to Tokyo only 6 hours, 45 minutes. I just give you figure how about all Indonesia all about. When I met Prime Minister Abe like 3 months ago, I mentioned to him about Indonesia. So Indonesia consists of 17,000 islands and inhabitant like 4,000 islands. And we experience also that the climate change is there. How do we know that? We can see from low tide and high tide sea that now more and more the coral islands disappear because of the surface of the sea increasing. Indonesia is a rich country, I should say so, because in terms of our GDP, it's a $1 trillion US, maybe more right now. And our economic growth 5.2%. And our inflation very low. The management transparent, led by president who's very humble but visionaries and very firm also to lead the country. And we are the largest Muslim population on earth, 230 million. This is not small. But we are still successful, I think, to maintain our democracy over there. And of course, we are facing also some problem, facing also radicalism over there. But this is also because of inequality. Inequality is the big issue that we have tackled the last 2 years, the last 2.5 years. So we believe the role of sea, ocean in Indonesia is very important. Because if you look at the coastline of Indonesia, 99,000 kilometers, then you can see number of fishermen at sea, on the beach, is 1 million of them. So if you're not successful to contain illegal fishing, overfishing, then less and less income for the fishermen in Indonesia. So this one is very important for Indonesia. Number two, there are so many tourist destinations in Indonesia, marine tourist destination. So if the breeze cover the beach, no more tourists come over. Our revenue, the largest revenue of the government of Indonesia by 2019 is from tourism. So we'll see number of tourism in Indonesia are now increasing significantly. So we have to tackle this one. So the government pay attention very much. That's why we allocated for the next 8 years, $1 billion to tackle this issue. And we committed to do so because, again, we have to look at also the equilibrium of our spending for this one and also our revenue for the tourism or other fish industry. Besides that, I think Indonesia also right now like to see the cooperation. That's why yesterday we have luncheon, ASEAN countries, 10 ASEAN countries. We have to be solid to tackle this issue. I don't believe it, and I don't see that we can tackle it alone, because we are in a very strategic location from Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean. So we are the cross. We are the largest, again, archipelagic country. So Indonesia can be the victim of the breeze from anywhere. But we are working very hard to tackle this one. So that's why we believe also yesterday that international cooperation is very important. But the first thing, we have to do it domestically in Indonesia. And number two, how do we organize with ASEAN country, which is right now moving well. And number three, how do we bring this issue globally? And Indonesia, we like also to be part of this. Like I mentioned earlier, Indonesia is not a poor country. Indonesia is maybe not many people understand that we are a member of G20, and we are number 15 largest economy right now on earth. And we believe within 5 years, 10 years, Indonesia can be number 7, number 5 economic, the size of our economy. So in terms of financing, we are okay. We don't have much problem on that. So inefficiency, that's the issue that we have to tackle in order also to solve this problem. That's, I think, that my briefing a little bit, and now I'm ready for any question to this presentation.
Thank you, Minister, for your introduction and for chairing yesterday that important dialogue. So we're now ready to take some questions. Please.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming to the briefing, Minister. I wanted to ask you, I've seen Indonesia's proposal for the WTO in December on proposed disciplines on prohibitions and special and differential treatment for fisheries subsidies. And I just wanted to ask you kind of an open-ended question. Can you say, I mean, I'm going over it, but what's Indonesia's thinking on the need for these? Do you think that there's any way that this conference could have or still could address the issue prior to December? And what would you like to see come out of this WTO session later in the year?
To be honest with you, I don't much familiar with this. Maybe I don't know. You can help me to explain this one.
Please, if you can come here if you want. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sorry. I'm the Deputy Minister of Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs. My name is Arif Hafasukros, and I'll give you my card later on. Now, our positions on the fisheries subsidy is very clear, because we have seen illegal fishing activities that are basically financed or supported by massive fisheries subsidies. But on the other hand, countries like Indonesia, we still need to give fisheries subsidies in a small-scale way. We do have fisheries subsidies, but they are very, very small. I'll give you a context of how small it is. We give new boats to fishermen. It's a 2 gross ton boat, very small boat, a boat with maybe 1 person or 2 person. It can go as far as maybe 3 nautical miles. They went in the morning and they go back in the evening. So that kind of support that we are giving. We are changing the gears from a destructive gears like the trawl to a much more sustainable gears. That's what we are providing in terms of subsidies. But I think that's about it. We don't support for businesses in the long distance fishing like some other countries. So this is what we believe is the right approach in terms of fisheries subsidies. It's a very difficult process, I understand, in Geneva. It's ongoing now. There are countries who are working as leadership, and Indonesia would like to play a very strong role there as well. Now, what we would like to see in the future is that there must be a link between the SDG 14 and the discussion of fisheries subsidies in the UN, in the WTO. And even farther than that, there must be a discussion in the context of the FAO as well, because illegal fishing has a massive different aspect and layers, and I think it's impossible for us to deal with it in just one layers only. Now, fishery subsidy is new layers that I think is very interesting for us to enter into and take leaderships there. So we hope that there will be an international standard at the WTO where countries can only give fishery subsidies to subsistence fisheries, to small-scale fisheries, but not giving subsidies that would induce or directly even support long-distance fishing that creates illegal fishing.
Just, if I could, one
Yeah,
quick.
let me add a little
absolutely.
bit. Let me add a little bit.
Thank you.
I think equilibrium is very important. Inequality, this I mentioned earlier, this is very important. I'm explaining also that 230 million the Muslim population in Indonesia. Poverty is still there, but we are working on this further, make it better. So the government should help the poor fishermen. If you don't help them, they can be convert to anybody. I can give you, maybe they can convert to be radicalism. Do you want to pay that one, the cost to tackle this one? So for us, this is very important. Not only for Indonesia, globally, it's very important. So inequality that is very important. That's why if you look at also the government Indonesia program, we are not talking only for the growth, but we are also talking about equality. Equality, that's why the government Indonesia provide what we call it village funds. Village funds, we give it to 74,975 villages around the country. What's the purpose of that? Basically to see the economy move in the village, yeah, in the remote, in the rural area. Maybe for you, for the developed country like America, you don't count this one. For like Indonesia, developing country like Indonesia, we need this one. So the cost of this, I think, is very little, not very much. We don't want to see our people, live in a very bad situation. So this one small, but what the EU should pay attention very much, the illegal fishing, because they don't pay tax, they don't pay anything. They just take it out and they destroy also the environment over there. So that's, I think, that we request to European Union and Ambassador Hafaz working very hard to get this one. So I need your support also. Otherwise, you also have nurturing radicalism. If you want to do it, yeah, please, you do it.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to be, this will be the only, I just want, in looking at this draft, I wanted to ask you, I see that it doesn't cover, quote, inland fisheries or aquaculture. And is that, I wanted to know, does that come from, is that an Indonesia's idea? Is it, not, I'm not saying it's not your idea. I'm just, can you explain how that relates to what you were saying about small, small fisheries?
We don't subsidy the, like what do you call it?
Industrial farming.
And big
fish farm.
industry.
Okay.
No, you
Okay.
can check it.
All right, sure,
I
sure.
promise you. But the small fishermen, we have to subsidy. Sure. We have to subsidy not only that one, education. Education, we have subsidy. There are small boat. This is for the poor people. Mm-hmm. But again, like I mentioned to you, if somebody challenges me, I'll tell them, okay, you help to nurturing this radicalism. Go ahead, do it. But we don't. The government of Indonesia also like to see equilibrium of this.
I just want to add, we have some very interesting program with the FAO on what we call the rice paddy and aquaculture. So we basically farm the fish on the rice paddy. It's quite a challenging work because the fish needs to live in a very good quality of water, and therefore you have to reduce the amount of the pesticide, and you have to even reduce the amount of the nutrients coming out of the fertilizer. So it's finding the equilibrium, which is quite tricky. But I think this is the type of program that we're working on, the inland aquaculture program. So I am looking at different models actually in terms of fisheries subsidies. The catch fisheries is, I think, is the worst part, because I've seen countries providing fishermen with a discount, massive discounts on the long distance fleet. They give lots of funding and tax holidays even for the company. So this is the one that actually fuel, the catch fisheries problem. Yeah. But I think this is a very good question, because this is going to be one of the most coming up contentious issue in the WTO. Yeah.
Well, please. Can you use the microphone, please?
Sorry, my ear not so good. Yeah.
James Bond.
There we go. Okay. James Fon from Internews' Earth Journalism Network. I believe Indonesia is one of the main countries for which marine debris, one of the largest sources of countries for marine debris, especially plastics. I'm wondering what your government is doing to try and reduce pollution, plastic pollution, especially into the oceans. Please. Thank you.
Well, we are working very hard. But number one, I think is very important. Right now, we insert to the curriculum to discipline our own people from the childhood. They have to understand the dangers of the plastic debris. Number two, of course, we are talking, like I mentioned earlier, we have to socialize to the public in Indonesia the dangers of the plastic debris. Number three, we minimize the plastic debris entering the at sea, ocean. And number four, now we develop technology to collect as much as possible plastic debris from the ocean. So that's, I think, the program of the government. Right now, it works, moving. We like to speed up this one. That's why our target within 8 years' time, we can reduce the plastic debris around 70% from the ocean. So, again, like you mentioned, we are sometimes can claim that we are a victim of this because the location of strategic location of Indonesia. But we cannot blame anybody because this is a global issue. So that's why this conference, Ocean Conference in UN, I think is very important. So then we can work together. Nobody can blame, but let's work together to solve this problem. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I believe with this we can finish. I want to once again thank you, His Excellency Minister Panjaitan, and also Vice Minister Oegreseno, that joined us, and I think it was very good to clarify some more technical issues on the important dialogue that we had yesterday. And as you know, today, this morning, there was one finishing just now, and there's another one this afternoon that we will be briefing to you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.